Next he wiped up the alcohol that had spilled across the counter and said quietly with an angry look, "Could you not smack drinks with your flippers? If you insist, then warn me and I'll pour into a glass with a wider base. My sincere apologies." Noticing this comedic display, Sholtia seemed to finally realize Claire was present and raised her head. "Oh Claire, haven't seen you in a while. It has indeed been a while. I see you every time you come to the 9th level." "Really?" "Yes. But it's rare to see you here. I thought Demiurge was about the only guardian to come here, although he did stop by for a quiet drink with Cocytus the other day." "Really? Huh?" Sholtia's eyes widened upon hearing of her colleagues. "But what's wrong? You look so distraught." "It's nothing, no, I just failed spectacularly, so I am drowning my sorrows like the terrible guardian I am." Claire looked perturbed and mouthed, "What's with her?" to the sous chef. But the sous chef didn't have an answer, so he just shook his head. He wanted them to enjoy their drinks, though, so he brought up an unexpected topic. "Okay, for a change of mood, how about some apple juice?" They both gave him blank looks. "It's made with apples from the 6th level. Perhaps that single detail piqued their interest." They both indicated they would have some. This genuine response satisfied him very much. What appeared on the bar was completely normal apple juice, 2 glasses. He glanced at the servant, but the man wordlessly refused as always. Of course, Claire had a beak, so he remembered to give him a straw. "The flavor is refreshing. It's not bad, but it lacks some oomph, mainly because it's not very sweet, I guess." Those were their impressions after they drained their glasses in one go. "Well, that can be helped. I tried eating one, but it just didn't have as much honey flavor as the ones stored in Nazarick. Are there apple trees on the 6th level? I don't remember any being there." But Sholtia remembered something. Before the sous chef could reply, she supplied the correct answer. "Are those the ones Lord Aints brought in? I heard from Albedo that he wanted to test whether we could grow outside fruit in Nazarick. This was part of the plan to replenish our supply of consumables." The sous chef had heard it too. He received orders to see if it was possible to make ability-boosting food with various outside ingredients. "Yes, I heard if it goes well, he plans to build an orchard. But you don't think they raise sweet enough? It's not undrinkable. It might be good for those times when you want a lighter sweetness. Who's growing them? Aura and Mare outside. Did they leave it up to their magical beasts?" No, a dryad Lord Aints brought in is doing it." Claire and Sholtia wore contrasting expressions of who and are, respectively. "I see. Is this what he meant by getting the right man for the job? Had he already come up with this back then?" "What do you mean, someone new joined Nazarick?" Sholtia answered Claire's question. The sous chef had met the dryad, but he hadn't heard the backstory, so he was all ears. Apparently Lord Aints had brought it along to some kind of fight to test the Guardians' teamwork. Then there had been a promise, and it came back to reside in Nazarick. Now it was an apple farmer, so Nazarick is changing and growing stronger bit by bit, huh? The sous chef and Sholtia expressed their agreement. The sous chef was just the sous chef, so he didn't know any details or what the plans for the great tomb of Nazarick's future were, but he understood well enough that Aints Ul Gaun, the last remaining supreme being, was trying to accumulate power in this world. Oh. So that means there could be more new members of Nazarick, like the Dryad, right? Sholtia sulked at Claire. "That sucks. I don't want grimy outsiders strutting about in this sacred place." The sous chef felt the same way. The thought of anyone not created here entering the supreme being's realm made him frown. But there was one thing more important than his opinion. We have to just accept it. It's what Lord Aints decided. Any judgment of the supreme being Aints Ul Gaun was absolute. If he said something white was black, then it was black. It's not like I would go against anything Lord Aints decided. Sholtia shouted, flustered. The other two nodded. "So from now on, we need to act as good role models. We need to be even more loyal to Lord Aints." "Of course, I don't think anyone has tried to rebel against him besides you." "Yeah, by the way, Sholtia, how about this? I'll promise you a high position." So Claire started on one of his usual invitations, a scheme that could never succeed, but a strange noise interrupted him. "Arg GH. Both of them looked at Sholtia, who was holding her head in her hands. Through her groaning, it sounded like she was murmuring, "I am loyal. I swear I am loyal really, though what happened?" She's not talking like she usually does either. In response to Claire's bewilderment, the sous chef shook his head and shrugged. Who knows? Zayusu had been riding Rororo through the marsh for half a day. The sun had climbed high into the sky, But the enemy encounter he'd been fearing hadn't occurred, and he reached his destination safely. There were several dwellings built in the marsh in the same way Green Claws were, and wooden posts, sharpened to a point, surrounded the area, facing outward. The posts had large gaps between them, but they would prevent a larger monster, like Rororo, from invading. This village had fewer houses than Green Claw, however the buildings themselves were larger. For that reason, it was hard to tell which tribe's population was higher. One of the buildings had a flag waving outside. On it was the Red Eye tribe's emblem. Yes, this was the first destination Zayusu had chosen, the Red Eye village. After taking a quick scan around, he breathed a sigh of relief. It was extremely good luck they were still living in the same area of the marsh as they had a long time ago. He thought he might have to start by searching around for them, since it was possible they moved due to the war. Zayusu turned to look back the way he came. He could see his own village. They must be in a huge hurry to get ready. Now that he was away, he felt anxious, but he could safely assume there was practically no chance of their being attacked. That he made it here in one piece was proof of that. Was the Great One, or whoever, off his guard? It wasn't clear if he had expected Zayusu's actions. At least for now, the enemy didn't seem in the mood to break their promise or obstruct the Lizardmen's war preparation. Of course, even if this great enemy did move to stop them, Zayusu's only option was to do what he believed in. He dismounted Rororo and stretched his back. His muscles were stiff from riding for so long, but stretching made them feel better. It even felt good. Then he told Rororo to wait for him and gave him some dried fish from his bag for breakfast and lunch combined. He would rather have instructed him to procure his own food somewhere in the area, but considering that might involve infringing on the Red Eye tribe's hunting grounds, he decided against it. After petting each of Rororo's snake heads a couple of times, Zayusu left him and set off walking. With Rororo nearby, people might be wary of the Hydra and not come out to meet him. Zayusu was a messenger bringing an offer of alliance. He didn't want to seem coercive or threatening. His feet made a splish-splash noise in the water as he walked. He spotted several members of the Red Eye warrior caste walking parallel with him. They were on the opposite side of the post enclosure. Their gear was no different from that of Green Claws warriors. They wore no armor. They carried spears made from sharpened bones attached to sticks. Some had sling-like straps. The fact that they didn't have any rocks at the ready told him they had no immediate intent to attack. He took care not to provoke them as he walked around to the main gate. Then he faced the Lizardmen watching him from the other side and raised his voice. "I am Zayusu Shasha of the Green Claw tribe. I want to have a word with this tribe's chief." Eventually, it wasn't a terribly short amount of time, but it certainly wasn't long. An elderly Lizardman appeared. He had a gnarled staff and white symbols on his body. 5 robust Lizardmen followed behind. A priest stood proudly. Right now they were equal. He couldn't bow his head. Even when the priest's eyes moved to the brand on his chest, he maintained the same posture. "I am Zayusu Shasha from the Green Claw tribe. I have something to discuss with your chief. I want to say it was good of you to come, but it seems the one who leads our tribe will see you. Follow me." The strange turn of phrase confused Zayusu for a moment. Why not chief? And they didn't even ask for proof that he was who he said he was. He didn't want to begin the conversation too clumsily and upset them. Despite feeling that something was off, he silently followed. The hut they led him to was a fine dwelling. It was even bigger than his brother's house in terms of his own tribe. Patterns in rare dyes decorated the walls. These patterns spoke to the high status of the one who lived there. One thing that caught his attention was the lack of windows. The only openings were small holes here and there for air. Like all Lizardmen, Zayusu could see fine in the dark, but that didn't mean he preferred living in it. So why was their leader staying in such a dark room? Zayusu wondered. It didn't seem anyone could answer for him. He turned around. The priest and warriors who had guided him there were already gone. At first, he thought leaving him alone was incredibly imprudent. He even indirectly asked them about it. But when they said that the acting chief wished it, his opinion of the person waiting in the room jumped. Despite what he said to his brother, Zayusu didn't expect to make it back unscathed. But surrounding him with armed warriors and pressuring him would have been useless for the Red Eye tribe. He probably would have first felt disappointment at their caliber as warriors. But if they read him so well and were acting generous, they might be good negotiators, difficult to deal with. Ignoring the sensation of distant eyes on him, he approached the door and raised his voice. I am Zayusu Shasha of the Green Claw tribe. I've been told the leader of this tribe is here. Allow me to come in. He heard a quiet sound. A hoarse female voice gave him permission to enter. Zayusu pushed open the door with no hesitation. Inside it was dark as he expected. The contact with the light outside made him blink, even though he could see in the dark. The smell that wafted out was something like an herbal bath, a pungent mix of greens. He figured the one inside would be an elderly female, but what he found completely overturned his expectations. Good of you to come, a voice said to him from the darkness. From the other side of the door, she sounded old, but now he could hear youthful energy. Once his eyes adjusted, she came into view. She's white. That was his first impression. Her scales were white like snow without a single impurity. Her deep crimson eyes sparkled like rubies. Her slender body was not masculine, but feminine. White and red symbols covered her. They meant she was an adult. They also meant she was proficient in many types of spells, and they meant she was single. What does it feel like to be stabbed with a spear? Zayusu knew. First, a hot, burning sensation shot through the body. With every heartbeat came a sharp, all-encompassing pain, and that's how Zayusu was feeling right now. It didn't hurt. He simply stood there, not saying anything. How did she interpret his silence? A cynical smile appeared on her face. So I look strange even to the bearer of frost pain, one of the 4 great treasures. Albinos are extremely rare in nature. This is partly because they stick out, which makes surviving difficult. In Lizardmen society, the situation was similar. They weren't quite civilized enough to guarantee the survival of members who had poor eyesight and were weak against sunlight. It was rare that albinos lived into adulthood. In some cases, they were even culled at birth. If the other Lizardmen viewed albinos as just a nuisance, that would be tolerable, but in some cases, they were even seen as monsters. That was the root of her cynicism, but prejudice wasn't Zayusu's issue. What's the matter? She asked. She was perplexed that he was still standing in front of the door doing nothing. Then, without replying to her question, he emitted a call with vibrato. It ended on a high tone. Hearing that, the female's eyes popped open. Her jaw dropped slightly. She was part shocked, part confused, and part scandalized. It was a mating call. Zayusu came back to himself. Realizing what he'd just done, what call he'd just unconsciously performed, he reacted in a way similar to a human blushing. His tail flailed around so violently, it seemed like he might damage the hut. No, I didn't mean that. I mean no. Perhaps Zayusu's surprise and panic had the contrary effect of smoothing her feathers. Her teeth clacked as she smiled and said awkwardly, please calm down. It'll just cause trouble for me if you get all rowdy. Oh, sorry. He bobbed his head in apology and entered the house. By this point, the female Lizardman's tail was drooping down, suggesting she had regained her composure. But the twitching tip showed that she hadn't calmed down completely. Have a seat. She indicated a cushion, which was woven out of some kind of plant, placed on the floor. Thanks. Zayusu sat down and she mirrored him. Pleased to meet you. I am a traveler from the Green Claw tribe, Zayusu Shasha. Thank you for the polite introduction. I am the acting chief of the Red Eye tribe, Crush Lulu. Having finished with the formalities, they visually appraised each other. Silence reigned in the hut for a little while, but it couldn't stay like that forever. Zayusu was a guest. Crush, the host, had to speak first. First of all, messenger, I don't think there is any need for us to stand on ceremony. I like to speak honestly, so feel free to relax. This meant she wanted to speak honestly, and Zayusu nodded. Thanks for that. I am not used to speaking formally. So can I ask why you came here? Crush asked, although she had a pretty good idea. An undead had suddenly appeared in the middle of the village. Someone was using the Tier 4 spell control cloud, and this visiting male was from another tribe. Some called him a hero. There was only one thing it could be. Crush imagined how he would answer, and he demolished her expectations. Marry me? Wyatt? For a moment she couldn't believe her ears. Of course, that's not the reason I came here. I fully understand I should get the real reason out of the way before moving on to this, but I can lie to myself. Feel free to laugh and call me a foolish man. Higher. These words she'd never heard before, words she thought would never have anything to do with her, sent a storm of confusion ripping through her train of thought, and tearing it irreparably apart. Zayusu smiled awkwardly at her and continued speaking. Sorry. Really, my apologies, and during an emergency, you can let me know your answer later. Okay, somehow managing to put her mind back together, or perhaps reboot it, Crush regained her composure. But she instantly remembered what he just said, and her temperature felt ready to skyrocket. She looked over the mail before her, making sure he didn't notice. His countenance was extremely calm. How can he be so relaxed after saying something like that to me? Is he out there courting all the time, or does he get propositioned a lot? It did sound cool, though. What am I thinking? This was his plan for sure. He wants to get me in the palm of his hand. Why would he want to mate with me anyway? Crush was so thrown off at being seen as a female for the first time that she didn't notice the tip of Zayusu's tail spasming. The male before her was mobilizing every ounce of his mental energy to suppress the frank expression of all the things in his heart. That was what created this lull. They both needed some quiet time under the veil of silence to cool down their dizzy heads. Finally, after enough time had elapsed, Crush thought they should return to their previous topic. She was about to ask him again why he'd come to their village when she remembered what he said last time. How can I ask now? Her tail co-upped the floor once, and the male in front of her jerked, as if she'd hit him. Crush inwardly fretted that her behavior was too rude. Even if he was a traveler, he had still come as the representative of his tribe. He wasn't just any lizardman, he was the hero who possessed frost pain. He was too important to take this attitude with. But it's your fault. More importantly, say something. Crush didn't know it, but Zayusu had chosen silence out of shame for his indiscreet behavior while she was busy controlling the volcano erupting inside her. The wordless void continued, and Crush resigned herself to the fact that if this kept up there would be nothing she could do. Then she thought to change the subject. Should I have expected that you wouldn't be afraid of me? Her question, tinged with cynicism, was met with a silent query from Zayusu. What are you talking about? Crush thought in turn, what is this guy thinking? I was asking if you were afraid of this white body of mine. It's like the snow that caps the mountains. It's a pretty color. Of course, she had never once in her life heard those words before. What was this guy saying? Unable to withstand her internal pressure, the lid keeping her emotions in check blew off with enough force to send it flying. Zayusu reached out casually and ran a hand over her scales. They were lustrous and pretty, as if they'd been polished, and a little cold. His hand glided over them. Shah, Crush emitted an exhalation that sounded like a short threat. That restored at least a smidgen of their respective calms. They both understood what had happened, what he had done without thinking, and they were both shaken. What instinct had made him do that? Why did that happen to her? They became impatient with the questions, and the impatience bred confusion. The result was their two tails batting against the hut, whap whap, so hard that it shook. After a couple of moments, they looked at each other's faces, noticed what they were doing, and both tails froze as if time itself had stopped. Was heavy the word for this atmosphere? Or tense? Silence fell over them, and they glanced at each other. Crush had finally gotten her feelings sorted, and with a cold look in her eye that said she wasn't going to tolerate any lies, she asked, "This is all very sudden, what's with you?" She hadn't been able to express herself very well in words, but Zayusu seemed to understand and replied honestly, with no hesitation. Love at first sight, and I might die in this fight, so I don't want to have any regrets. Hearing his simple honesty, his words that seemed to hide nothing, Crush found herself at a loss for a moment, but she didn't quite buy it. The bearer of frost pain has resigned to die. We don't know how many we ray up against. We can be careless. Did you see the monster who brought the message? The one that came to my village, was Zayusu described it, and Crush nodded. Yes, it's the same one. Do you know what it is? No, no one in my tribe knows. Oh, I met one once. He stopped there to see her reaction. I ran away. I couldn't have one. At best I would been half dead by the end. Crush understood what a terrifying undead it was, and was relieved that holding back the warriors had been the right decision. It can scream in a way that messes with your head. Also, it's incorporeal, so it's basically immune to attacks that aren't made with enchanted weapons. Even with numbers you can win. With druid magic we can enchant weapons for a limited time. Can you block attacks on the mind? We can boost resistance, but we don't have quite enough power to protect everyone. I see, can any priest do that? Almost all of them can boost resistance. I am the only one in this tribe who can protect someone from confusion, though. Crush noticed Zayusu's breathing grow a little rough. It seemed like he realized that her position wasn't just for show. Yes, Crush Lulu was quite an accomplished druid and probably possessed more power than any Lizardman head priest. What number was the Red Eye tribe on the attack list? It told us fourth. And what are you going to do about it? Time passed. Crush wondered what the point of talking about it was. Greenclaw had surely chosen to fight. Zayusu had probably come to form an alliance. He was going to say fight with us. Where was the benefit in that for Red Eye? They weren't interested in forming an alliance.